What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. The Taric rework has finally been announced and is up on the PBE, and not too long ago we saw both the Shen rework and the Poppy reworks and the 80 carry reworks too. And with all these reworks coming out, there's just about as many if not more than actual new champions. Champion reworks have become this huge phenomenon, and with the Mage reworks along with everything Riot is planning, Season 6 is looking like it's going to be the season of champion reworks. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you don't, please hit that dislike, and let's get started. A while back around Season 3 or 4 when Riot began slowing down their new champion cycle and stopped making new champions consistently every 2 weeks, one of the main reasons that they cited for doing this was because they wanted to dedicate more time to reworking the already existing champions, and to make sure that they could really do every champion justice, not just the ones coming in the future. But reworking champions is typically a controversial thing to do, as a lot of people might have mained or at least enjoyed that champion already, and for some, a big part of why they play League of Legends might have been that one specific champion. Reworking any champion in the game can have some seriously negative downsides that you wouldn't otherwise have with a completely new champion. There's a lot more risk involved, and the reward is certainly a lot less too from Riot's perspective, since Riot definitely sells more copies of a newer champion compared to a freshly reworked one. So why do they bother? I mean, why rework champions at all? Why remake an existing champion when you could just create a completely new one, make a lot more money without the risk of upsetting members of the player base who like that champion in the first place? Well, there's actually quite a lot of depth that goes into that decision. The most common reason to rework a champion is that Riot views that champion to have some kind of problem with their gameplay. Perhaps their gameplay is poorly designed and as such is impossible to balance. Many champions have unhealthy kits or unfair design, which causes them to be a nightmare to make balanced. Either they're completely broken or they're just totally underpowered, and that's not a good thing at all. And a rework is often the step needed to just make that champion balanced, and is often necessary to give that champion proper strengths or weaknesses, or both. As well, a lot of the champions that are being reworked lack purpose, in a sense that they're not unique champions or they lack a specific role, and as a result they feel subpar to play because they get outclassed by other champions since they don't really excel at anything specific themselves. Especially at the competitive level, there's so many champions that just never get played because of this idea of like, why play X champion when you could play Y or Z, and Riot doesn't like that, and for good reason. They want every champion to have their own little niche with meaningful strengths and meaningful weaknesses. You could also rework a champion because the character just doesn't feel that good. Maybe the gameplay doesn't fit in line with the story and personality. Maybe that monstrous tank just feels kind of lackluster. Or that elegant healer feels a bit clunky and unintuitive, you get the idea. A champion should have a personality that comes to life in their gameplay. Like how Jinx makes you feel like this crazy insane girl running around and blowing everything up when you play her. And that's a big part of what makes Jinx an awesome champion. And that feel and personality should be captured in everyone. But it's quite lacking, especially in a lot of the older champions. Different reworks occur for different reasons, and some reworks have very different goals and results. Most of the time they try to keep the spirit of the champion intact, or keep some gameplay aspect. For example, with the Graves rework, they really liked this idea of him being this in-your-face, real close and personal brawler with huge burst damage, and that feel was kept intact with his rework. Or with Quinn, they really liked how she was like this scout that had the ability to pick off a target for a kill, and that was kept in the game as well. That element of reworking is the key difference between a rework and a completely new champion, and for the majority of reworks, Riot is successful in keeping that aspect. Even though they might have new abilities, the personality and character and feel is what really defines a champion, at least in the eyes of Riot. And as long as that isn't completely ruined, then it's not hurting the champion all that much. However, a lot of reworks fall into what you could categorize as unsuccessful, in the sense that maybe the new version of the champion was subjectively worse than the older version, maybe it was less fun, or maybe a little bit of that gameplay feel was lost, and depending on the player, that might have just been too much. I like to look at the Mordekaiser rework because it's probably the most unsuccessful rework thus far in League of Legends history. They tried to do something unique and interesting with him by making him this melee replacement for an 80 carry, but he ended up being extremely overpowered and then extremely underpowered, and now he's right back to where he started before the rework. in the sense that his character has no purpose, is clunky to play, and it wouldn't surprise me if he received an additional rework in the future. But despite being unsuccessful, it did attempt the idea of being this refreshing new take on the meta that was so unique and different from everything else. And that feeling of being unique for a character is an awesome thing that Riot wants to try to bring to every champion if possible in different ways, one at a time. You also have to consider Riot's motivations for reworks in general. They want to rework champions because they feel like that champion deserves a rework for some meaningful reason. Usually it's a balance problem, sometimes it's that their character can just be improved so much, or sometimes it's that they want to make that champion unique and meaningful compared to others for some reason. But the biggest reason is really for the long-term success of the game. Reworking champions ideally makes the game as a whole a lot better, since it makes any gameplay involving that specific champion better overall once the kinks are balanced out, at least it's supposed to. A lot of champions in League of Legends are incredibly outdated or just flat out poorly designed, and fixing that has an impact on the overall design of the game as a whole. If you take a look at the champions Riot releases today, they're all unique and interesting, and for the most part vary in balance. They aren't all overpowered or all underpowered because Riot tries to make fun champions over anything else. And the champion design today has improved ridiculously far from the days of Season 2 when we had a champion every 2 weeks, and almost all of them were being released broken as heck at the time. By reworking champions, Riot allows those older champions to be brought up to the standards of the newer champions being made today. Sure, I can't deny that sometimes the reworks aren't actually that good, and sometimes they definitely have problems, but there's no denying that the older champions have a lot of problems too. Reworks make the entire group of champions in League of Legends better as a whole, or at least that's the idea behind it. And that's great for the long-term success of having an awesome set of champions where every single one eventually becomes unique, interesting, and modern, while also having healthy gameplay and interactive decisions. And I for one think it's pretty cool that Riot is trying to hold older champions to the same standard as the newer champions, even if the execution behind the reworks isn't entirely as good as we might want them to be. Although reworks might not always come out in a positive way, they all have some sort of design ideal or goal behind them that is headed in the right direction. Riot does need to step up their execution if they want reworks to be consistently successful, but it's a solid direction to take with a lot of the existing champions in the game. But that just about wraps up my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.